All right, YouTube. Now the so-called press, as in the fake news of CNN and MSNBC and others, are attacking Trump still for the Merkel meeting. Of course, for a while there, they wanted to talk about how he refused to shake her hand. I wouldn't have even been in the same room with her. I said that. But it's actually not entirely true. He did shake her hand a couple of times. He just didn't want to shake it on camera for the benefit of people that don't even like him and had just spent several minutes, hardballing him with questions that in many cases didn't make sense. Like that one German reporter, oh, why don't you like diversity in the press? What are you talking about? What does diversity have to do with whether or not journalists are doing their job? It's just totally fucked up. But there was something else said when Trump and Merkel were meeting that was a bit more important. And of course, Trump leans over and says, oh, we have something in common. Obama wiretapped you too. And Merkel pretended not to know what he was talking about. And the press is now pretending, the yellow journalists of the press, the corporate legacy dying media, they're pretending, oh, Merkel never got wiretapped by Obama. Aha, got you there. She actually was spied on by Obama frequently. What happened, it came out in 2013, link in description, of course, archived, to a years old news story. Angela Merkel's personal phone was indeed bugged by the U.S. intelligence agencies here. Obama became personally aware that this was going on, as he knew that it was happening, and he allowed it to continue. Because the buck stops there and he was the president of the United States at the time, thus, yes, indeed, Obama had a hand in conducting surveillance on her personal correspondence via cell phone. It is true, it is objective fact, it is documented fact. The fact that the corporate press expects that people have too short an attention span to go back into news archives from years ago and realize that what Trump is claiming actually happened is their only main advantage. Of course, if somebody gets their news solely from MSNBC or CNN, all they have to do is omit the fact that it actually happened and people will act as though it didn't. But it did, and it was reported on widely at the time. I made a video at the time on the fact that this had happened and said I thought that it was very strange that the United States would conduct such surveillance on the leader of a country that was supposedly very friendly with Obama in many ways. Of course, Angela Merkel got along with him very well. Not so much with Trump, apparently, although they're tolerating each other. That's more than I can say I'd be able to accomplish with somebody like Merkel. But at the time, Obama was more part of that, globalist sort of alliance, liked the EU, didn't like the fact that the UK was going to hold a Brexit vote, actually threatened them. Oh, you're going to be at the back of the line with trade. And this is all happening under Obama. And he knew that this was going on. It's just like all the other leaks that happened under the Obama admin. Obama pretended, oh, I didn't know anything about the stuff that the NSA was doing. I didn't know anything about what the CIA was doing. I know literally nothing, says Obama at the time. His fans didn't even notice the strange fact that this meant that the President of the United States, Barack Obama at the time, was totally inept. He didn't even know it was happening. With the Merkel stuff, it had to be admitted that he knew that it was happening. He directly oversaw that it was the case. He got the report. Yeah, and we've been conducting surveillance on Merkel's phone. And then it's left up to leakers, publishing through WikiLeaks. Once again, it's up to them to disclose the fact to Merkel, who was enraged at the time. The German press raked Obama and the intelligence agencies here over the coals at the time. This was several years ago. And people forgot that it even happened, I guess. It's sort of like Stalin-esque. It's like the news simply tries to delete things, tries to get people to, oh, that never happened. I don't remember anything about this. It never happened. Or they go into this minutia, this hair splitting with language use. They say, oh, well, it wasn't a wiretap, it was just surveillance. What else are you going to call it? You expect that it's a literal physical wiretap on a landline phone? Yes, I'm sure that many of these world leaders, they never talk on a personal cell phone. They've got some rotary phone from the 1970s. That's how they conduct official state business and diplomatic business and talk to their friends about their yoga classes. Yes, it has to be a literal physical wiretap where an FBI van shows up and a couple dudes, with ski masks on, fiddle around with the phone lines and install some bugging software. Yes, I'm sure that's how it happened. No, it had nothing to do with these CIA programs that are supposed to break all phone encryption. They weren't responsible. Don't worry. I think it went beyond the NSA at the time when that happened. But it's a documented fact that yes, she was spied on by the U.S. intelligence agencies. Trump is correct. Fundamentally, Trump is right when he says this. Now, the Snopes and so forth, they're going to say, liar, liar, pants on fire, it never happened. It's not they'll either point to what happened and say, well, that doesn't qualify as a wiretap, when we all know what he meant, she was spied on. Or they'll pretend that it never even occurred. Or they'll say, oh, Russia, because WikiLeaks involvement. Russia. Then we find, of course, Donna Brazil in her coverage of the DNC, like the debate questions involving WikiLeaks, when she spent months and months blaming the Russians and still is. She finally comes out and admits, oh yeah, but I did feed the Clinton campaign debate questions, but don't worry, it was even-handed. Somehow, I did my job. I regret it, but, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's in the past, so don't think too much about it. I'll be talking about that later. Trump is correct when he says that Merkel was wiretapped. He's also fundamentally correct when he points out British involvement in the surveillance that goes on. Invariably, because there's data sharing between these countries. The UK's intelligence services and our intelligence services share data freely. That means that there is potentially, if somebody is swept up wrongfully under our mass surveillance, as is generally going to be the case. Most people are not career criminals or terrorists in this country, and they're all being spied on. 99% of them have done nothing to warrant being spied on. Regardless of whether you're just storing that info and not actually combing through it beyond an automated algorithm, it's still a form of surveillance. And that data is shared freely with the British intelligence services. It's also shared freely with, I believe, a couple of the Nordic countries, Sweden and Norway, I believe, Australia, and a few others. It's part of a massive dragnet to conduct mass surveillance on all of these populations. And there's actually even a constitutional workaround. If the U.S. government determines that it wants to spy on someone and can't even get the very loose FISA court to okay the warrant, they'll simply have some foreign entity use the same software to spy on them unofficially. They'll say, oh yeah, you might want to look into this person, you conduct it. And then they'll data share. And they get that data on a U.S. citizen, bypassing the Fourth Amendment entirely. That was a worry at the time when Snowden was making his revelations. Nobody in the press wants to talk about that. The press went out of its way under Obama when Snowden and WikiLeaks and all these groups were publishing information. They went out of their way to crucify and demonize these people. Snowden must be a traitor because he didn't want to stand trial, on charges that are totally, pardon the pun, trumped up. So he goes to China. Therefore, he must be sharing stuff with the Chinese. He went to Russia. Oh, he's sharing stuff with the Russians. Julian Assange. Oh, he's probably a pervert and, probably nuts, and he's endangering national security, even though he freely redacts documents specifically to prevent that sort of thing from happening. And, it's wrong of him to Mozilla. I use Firefox myself. Mozilla has already responded to WikiLeaks stuff and obtained further documentation so they can plug holes in their software to keep it more secure from this kind of spying, which now is necessary. Google apparently hasn't reached out to do that, which is problematic. I think that's wrong. These companies that have had encryption broken, that have had holes specifically built into their products, for programs that once maybe were just used by the CIA but are now being used by probably hackers and other state entities, they need to plug those holes in their software, or they're leaving it wide open to be basically destroyed. Firefox apparently is the only significant company so far that responded and actually shows a proclivity towards wanting to fix that so that its customers don't get screwed. I'm very happy to use it. I suggest that all of you, if you're using Internet Explorer, I don't know what's wrong with you. If you're using any of these other browsers, I suggest you switch to Firefox. They're the only company responsive to WikiLeaks. So if you take your security seriously, that could probably be a good way forward. You can get all the add-ons, the no script and ad block and stuff like that. It's easy. It's secure. I haven't had a virus in like 5 years. It's fairly straightforward. But Trump is right. Merkel was wiretapped by Obama. In a sort of roundabout way. Of course, he didn't dream up the program itself. They were already conducting surveillance. He simply became aware of that fact and said, I have no problem with this. Yeah, you're conducting surveillance on the Chancellor of Germany's own private cell phone. Yeah, that's okay with me. I'm aware of it. I didn't have a problem with it. And then he comes out shamefaced when Merkel complains. Says, oh, you might have done something wrong here. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I was spying on my fellow globalists. Why were you even conducting surveillance on her phone? She's like your bosom buddy. She believes in everything that Obama believed in. Suppress the lower class, heavy-handed censorship, government opacity, no transparency whatsoever, a little bit of warmongering here and there, and some silent wars so that you don't get the ire of the population up. It's like Trump is planning to send 1,000 troops back into, I believe it's Iraq right now, for an offensive there, and also potentially troops in Syria. I oppose this, but he's being overt about it. He's not trying to do it covertly with U.S. drones, which has the same outcome, let's face it, only people don't worry so much. Now all of a sudden you even have the left that for 8 years there, they were very pro-war. They're like, oh, we're going to crush all of our enemies. Obama's the greatest president ever. He really keeps us safe. We're going to fuck Osama bin Laden's corpse. We're going to bomb the hell out of Assad. We're going to drone the hell out of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And then, of course, it was ineffective, but we're going to bomb all these people. Fuck the civilians. It doesn't matter if tens of thousands of them die. They were all gung-ho for that when Obama was president. As soon as November came along, they become the anti-war party once again in their true move of hypocrisy. The left is now pretending to be hippies again. Oh, we're worried that we might invade North Korea. You know, the one country in the world that we probably should do something about in a military fashion because the people there are so abjectly ground down, as opposed to fucking around with people in Syria by trying to oust a dictator who at least has marginal popularity and isn't a total shitfuck all the time and that we tolerated for decades and decades and didn't even talk about. Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. Let's worry about the possibility that we might get tangled up in North Korea. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. You know, a rogue atomic state nonetheless. Oh, we're so worried about the Syrians, they may or may not have deployed nerve gas. Or maybe it was the FSA, but we're not sure. We should warmonger there and bomb everything to hell. That's a great idea. Oh, fuck the Russians, the Iranians. We're going to screw them all over. But North Korea, rogue nuclear state, hermit kingdom, absolutely no freedom whatsoever, never even had, marginal development like Syria or Libya did. Oh, we've got to leave them alone. I think the Democrats like them because they still claim to be communists or something along that line. Merkel was spied on by U.S. intelligence services. It's part of public record. It's documented. Obama had to respond to it. Merkel responded to it. At the time, the German press raked Obama over the coals, and our press here is not even honest enough to denote the fact that that actually happened. They'd rather ignore it altogether. Oh, we don't know where these claims are coming from. Trump is obviously paranoid like usual. He's becoming unhinged. And he's right. It happened. Go look at the link in the description. Archived link. It happened. This is a story from 2013. It actually occurred. They're pretending like it didn't. The sheerest dishonesty you could possibly have. That's about all. Peace out.